Hello and welcome to our introduction of the DCAT to Occupational Task Ability Profiler, brought to you by the North American Clinical Research Consortium. The OTAP was developed to support occupational therapists in the stage model of work-oriented neurorehab. In this interdisciplinary model, occupational therapists participate at 7 stages and provide leadership at stages 3 through 5. I encourage you to consider expanding your purview to include stage 6, focused on the client's employability. We can do this with the help of ONET Online, the Occupational Information Network. There are 6 large cross-reference databases in ONET, 2 of which are particularly important to OT. The Worker Characteristics database, in which abilities are found, and the Occupation-Specific Information database, in which tasks are found, are especially important to OTs. OTs are uniquely prepared to address the relationship between the occupation's necessary abilities and its task's demands. This is at the core of occupational therapy training. The ONET can be used by OTs to take their expertise to the next level. We developed the DCAT-2 Occupational Task Ability Profiler to empower OTs so that they can equip their clients with the knowledge and tools to optimize their likelihood of success in work-oriented neurorehab and successfully return to work. Let's use an example. You've received a new referral from your neurologist colleague that she has a patient who is a studio director. She would like you to help get back to work. What does a studio director do? We go to ONET Online and find that the title of studio director is within one of the more than 900 occupational classifications, what are called the standard occupational classification codes. The home page for Media Technical Directors/Managers is where we find the data that helps us learn about studio directors. They coordinate the activities of technical departments such as taping and editing and engineering and maintenance to produce radio or television programs. We find that there's a bright outlook in this occupation. We also note that the ONET data were last updated for this occupation in 2022. Next, we look down the page in this occupational classification and find that there are many aspects of the occupation we can consider, but let's focus on tasks and abilities. There are 15 core tasks, 6 of which we have on the screen with an importance rating that goes from 0 to 100. We can familiarize ourselves with these before we meet the client so that he has a sense that we understand what he does. We next take a look at the abilities section on this web page and find that 17 of the 52 ONET abilities are important for studio directors, 6 of which are listed here, along with each of their baseline levels of demand. We are impressed. This is a person who's very accomplished in a field we don't know much about, and we're looking forward to meeting him. Based on this information about tasks and abilities, we begin to think of how activities in our clinic might be helpful. So, when he comes to the clinic and meets us for the first time, he knows that we've done a little bit of our homework, and we become the first person in his post-injury rehab experience that he doesn't have to completely explain his job to. He's intrigued. And I want to point out that for many clients, you can introduce him to ONET Online as part of a very sophisticated framework of your rehab program. They can learn to use ONET Online at home. You can equip your client while you simultaneously empower yourself. I use OTAP to help the client keep their family on the same page as they move through rehab, and I also use it to provide information to other caregivers and stakeholders. I'll show you how in a minute. OTAP is a Microsoft Excel workbook with many related worksheets. I've written a simple macro program to help you navigate the hundreds of thousands of pieces of data in the abilities database. With the DCAT-2, we addressed 9 of the 52 ONET abilities, 3 psychomotor abilities, and 6 cognitive abilities. Here's one of the charts that we can print out and provide our clients. It includes the importance rating and the baseline level of ability required in their occupation. Here we have it for all 9 DCAT variables. And here we have it for just the 6 ONET cognitive variables that we address in DCAT-2. This is another tab in OTAP that provides the ONET standardized scores that go from 0 to 100 that the charts are based on. You see the importance score, and we also provide the 95% confidence interval for the demand level. you can see that the most important variables are oral comprehension and problem sensitivity. They also have the highest demand scores. This information is important because it tells us what the biggest stumbling blocks will be if a person has impairments that affect either of those abilities. So that's what we'll present to the client, but here's what's more important to you. This is the underlying data based on job analysis. This is important for you to understand because your knowledge of the behavior-anchored rating scales will bridge the gap between the person's functional limitations and the task demands in their target job. That's going to be the focus of your attention. Let's take oral comprehension as a useful example. Here is the tab in OTAP that presents a tremendous amount of data for oral comprehension in the occupational category of media, technical directors, and managers. At the top of the page, we find a definition of oral comprehension: the ability to listen to and understand information and ideas presented through spoken words and sentences. Beneath that, we have 3 behavioral anchors. At level 2, it's understand a television commercial. At level 4, it's understand a coach's oral instructions for a sport. At level 6, it's understand a lecture on advanced physics. Midway down the page, we have a whole set of behavioral anchors with an anchor at each end of the bar scale for the lowest and highest level of ability. The lowest level of ability, level 1, oral comprehension is behaviorally defined as understanding short or simple spoken information that contains common words and phrases. At the opposite end at level 7, oral comprehension requires understanding complex or detailed spoken sentences that contain unusual words and phrases. Then we have 5 exemplar occupations. Each exemplar occupation has an example behavioral anchor from that occupation that will help the OT estimate the client's bar ratings on oral comprehension. At the bottom of the page, we find that the job analysis data range from 3.88 to 4.37, with a mean score of 4.12. This is based on data independently collected by professional job analysts using a formal system. In most cases, there is a standard error of measurement that allows us to estimate the 95% confidence interval. This means there's a 95% likelihood that the actual score for the baseline ability is found between 3.88 and 4.37. DCAT 2 addresses the 9 ONET variables through assembly of 3 doll chairs within a simulated work environment that we call the Goldilocks Chair Company. How in the world can that be useful to a studio director who has experienced a stroke or concussion? Well, that's part of the art of occupational therapy, in which we use work simulations to address the functional limitations that are the barriers to return to work. Social and business interactions among the 4 Goldilocks employees set the stage for evaluating the cognitive variables, including oral comprehension. And their interacting with each other and with suppliers and customers gives us the opportunity to collect ratings of our client's cognitive functional capacity. The client's ability to perform a highly structured work sample test, in this case work sample test number 1 with the baby bear chair, provides us with an opportunity to observe the client's behavior and rank them on a behavior-anchored rating scale that's appropriate for this job task. In this case, the oral comprehension bar scale score achieved by the client was 2.5. The more complex and less structured situational assessment increases the level of difficulty and thereby allows higher levels of behavior-anchored rating scale demands. In this case, situational assessment number 7 takes the client to the next level. The oral comprehension bar scale score achieved by the client was 2.7. Each work sample and situational assessment evaluation record has different levels of demand because the task has different levels of complexity. For situational assessments, there's a span of 12 levels of demand as we mix and match the 3 doll chairs with 4 levels of contextual cognitive demands. There are 2 rating scales built into each evaluation record: demonstrated ability score for each of the 9 ONET variables, in addition to the employability rating for all 14 of the variables built into the situational assessment. The overall employability rating scale score allows us to grade the person's current status. In this case, the client has achieved an average ERS score of 2.7. A score of 2.7 equates to the mid-range score on the Employability Rating Scale that would place the client at what we call the coach level of employability. OTs also call this the mod assist level, in which limited physical and/or verbal guidance is required for the worker to safely and dependably complete the work activities. Between not employable and competitively employable, the three mid-range levels on the Employability Rating Scale describe levels for potential accommodations of the client as a return to work is contemplated. In addition to the Employability Rating Scale score, we can estimate the client's range on the ONET variables that are specifically related to their occupation through the use of the OTAP charts. We make the assumption that a person who has significant tenure and success in their career has inherent abilities before they were injured or became ill that were above the basic ability levels in the ONET database. The blue line across the chart above the standardized score of 60 is our estimate of where this would be for a media technical director or manager. Based on data collected with DCAT 2, to which we can add other data available within our clinic and from other of our interdisciplinary team members, we can come up with an estimate of the person's current ability in this case, centered around a standardized score of 20. We can use this to explain to our client what we're going to be paying attention to. And you can continue to track the client's progress through their rehab program so that after several weeks, if they achieve the level we see on the chart now, we've helped all the stakeholders to develop a better idea about the efficacy of additional rehab. Should we continue with a person who has not yet plateaued? And if so, how much longer do we think rehab will be needed? Or should we begin to think of an alternate employment target? Although the OTAP is attuned to the DCAT 2, it provides a range of additional information of interest to our interdisciplinary team colleagues to which they can contribute. It certainly will be of interest to the client's family and other stakeholders, including the referring physician and all of the rehabilitation service underwriters. I hope that this has been helpful, and I would encourage you to consider following up with us and discussing the integration of the OTAP and DCAT 2 in your occupational therapy clinic. Take care now.